First, we will hear from Dr. Jayani Perera, who is a senior chemist in the Division of Product Quality Assessment. Let's see if I can do this, 19, right off the top there. So in the Office of Product Quality Assessment 3 within the Office of Product Quality within CDER. We will also hear from David Green, Senior Pharmaceutical Quality Assessor within the Office of Product Quality Assessment 17 and the Office of Product Quality Assessment 3 within OPQ and the Office of Generic Drugs at CDER. Then we will hear from Dr. Feng Wan, Senior Pharmaceutical Scientist in the immediate office and the Office of Product Quality Assessment as one, and then OPQ and CDER as well. And last, we'll hear from Andrew Eidzior, chemist in the Office of Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Assessment, or OPMA, within OPQ at CDER. We do want to announce right now that our final presenter for this session, Tahseen Mirza, or Dr. Tahseen Mirza, is actually under the weather, so he will not be giving that presentation today. We will skip that portion on the agenda, and we will go ahead and resume and start the Q&A at that time. So you'll notice the agenda is pushed up by about 20 minutes through the rest of the remaining items today. With that, if you will all welcome Dr. Jayani Perera.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Corey, for that nice introduction. I hope you all had a great lunch and not too sleepy. Or if you want to take a nap, don't. So my name is Jayani Perera, and I'm a senior chemist at Office of Pharmaceutical Quality. And let me go back to one slide. And thank you for the opportunity to present on GDUFA III impact on DMF assessments. Put this down a little bit. Too close to me. So those of you who attended the 2023 GDF may be familiar with most of these slides. We presented it, but this time, we're providing more updated data and also giving you some key points to improve these requests for these GDUFA III enhancements. I'm going to go over some high-level processes, not deep diving into these processes, providing you, like I said, some updated data and key points, and also a couple of key takeaways specifically for the prior assessment process. So let's start with the DMF solicited off-cycle amendments. Seems like this has its own mind and keep going. Hopefully it will stop. So before the GDUFA III, most of you remember that we did not pick up any off-cycle reviews. Without an off-cycle means there's no open application. So prior to GDUFA III, we did not pick up those solicited amendments. Solicited amendments are any responses to CR letters, deficiency letters. But the one thing to remember is we don't pick up all these solicited amendments in GDUFA III. There are criteria we apply. So there will be priority given to these amendments of the DMFs where we can anticipate an approval and result in an approval. So there are a couple of a few criteria we follow. There is a map published, and I have a link. I'm sure most of you already read it, and it has actually these priority criteria, the decision tree we apply for these when we triage these amendments. So the high-level implementation process for the off-cycles, so I'm just going to say off-cycles because that's the that one enhancement, the new enhancement in the GDUFA III. So when we receive an off-cycle amendment, OPQ, that's us, we triage these amendments based on following that criteria, that decision tree, and we categorize them into two buckets. One is a high priority bucket, the other one is a low priority bucket. So if it falls into the high priority bucket after we going through those criteria, we set a DTD. So the DTD is actually the DMF review target date. So we put a target date and then we assign it to an assessment team. And if there are any deficiencies, we communicate them via IR, information request, if there is no open ANDA at that time. But if there is an open ANDA, then we go ahead and issue the CR. This is actually, without me clicking, it's actually going. I don't know what's going on. So. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, when I tested it didn't, but that's okay. I can go back. So bear with me. And if we put any of these solicited amendments into the low criteria bucket, we, depending on the resources, we may pick up them for review, but most of the times they're going to be deferred into until, we receive an application. So this thing jumped right into the slide. It's something really, really important because the trigger for this triaging process is actually receiving this email to the DMF OGD mailbox, which you all are familiar because we had it for a really long time. So this is not something new because in our CR letters, we always say, please let us know when you submit the response because that's a trigger. We triage this mailbox few times a day, every day. So as soon as you send us, oh, I submitted an amendment and we know you submitted it, so that's our trigger. Go ahead and look at it, whether it's off cycle or on cycle. If it's off cycle, we go through the process. So make sure to send that email so that we can do the triaging quickly and assign as soon as possible. So what are the impacts on this enhancement? So like I said, we get an opportunity to review these amendments off cycle. So that means we will have more approval. So Dr. Kozak in his presentation this morning, he shared what first cycle, he said 20% and then second cycle 20%. So that was like prior to GDUFA III. So we are hoping that in GDUFA III, we can improve that first cycle approvals and also limit the number of cycles for an approval because we are picking up these amendments ahead of time before even an ANDA is submitted. And at the beginning of GDUFA III, we estimated about 70 to 100 of these amendments will be qualified under this enhancement. So you can see from this slide that we actually reached that whatever the estimate we made. So we actually in 2023, 76, 2024, 87, and then 2025 up to like February, we've already assigned 22. So we are actually meeting that estimate we made at the beginning of GDUFA III. So what this means is that we are finding DMFs adequate quicker than we did before, which actually improves the first cycle approvals and also subsequent like second cycle approvals as well, depending on how many cycles we have. But this is actually a really good improvement we saw when we saw these numbers. So some of the key points for you to know is that we triage these amendments within a week. As soon as we get them, we triage them within a week. If we prioritize under GDUFA III, we assign these amendments and we set a DTD 120 days. And you will know that we picked it up for review under this enhancement because we send you an email. Whomever sent that email to us letting us know that they submitted the solicited amendment, we let that person know, or we picked it up for review, and here is a DTD. So the reason to do that is that way, you don't need to wonder whether we picked it up or not. So, but one thing to remember is that if we don't pick it up for review, that means we categorize into the low priority bucket, we don't let you know. But if you wonder, we get so many emails to the DMF OGD mailbox from the industry asking, what's the status of my DMF? So if you're wondering what happened, you can always email us and we'll let you know. So that those resources, make sure you use those resources to, communicate with the agency. In some of the slides coming up, I'm going to talk about this communication a lot. So to continue with the key points, a couple of things also you need to know is that once we set this DTD, we don't just change it unless there is a reason, like a valid reason. So one of the reasons to actually change this TTD, so this is off cycle, we assign, but then an application came in with a goal date which requires an earlier due date. So if there's an earlier due date because we need to meet a goal date, we go ahead and change the DTD to that earlier date. The other instances where it would change is, say we picked it up under off cycle, but then all of a sudden there's an unsolicited amendment. So if there's an unsolicited amendment, we can pick it up within the review cycle depending on the type of the amendment, whether it's a minor amendment. But sometimes we have to let you know that it may require a goal date extension. So we ask in that email we send you, just limit the number of unsolicited amendments if you know that solicited amendment is picked up for off-cycle review. So limit the amendments unless you absolutely have to. What if we picked it up for review, we told you what the DTD is, and an application came, but it has a DTD with the goal date at a later date? We don't change it because we made the commitment under GDUFA III to pick up this DMF to review under off-cycle, and we meet that DTD. So we don't change it just because there's an application, because now we have an earlier date to commit. Okay, so let's switch into the next enhancement, the DMF review prior to ANDA submissions. We just call them the prior assessments. That's much easier. So this one, again, it's sort of like off cycle because there's no application, but it's called prior assessment because it's prior to a submission of an application. So there are a few criteria the industry needs to follow to be eligible under this prior assessment. One thing is the submission should come 6 months prior to the application submission. So when we talk about this request, the request is actually should be submitted by the DMF holder. It's a request coming from the DMF holder for an anticipated application, which will be submitted in 6 months' time. And like I said, it should be submitted by the DMF holder. And this is available for brand new DMFs, which are not previously reviewed. It could be something you submitted with your prior assessment request, or it's submitted like way back years ago, but it has never been reviewed. So those are what we call DMFs without an assessment. So those are brand new DMFs. And there are some few conditions. All of you, I'm pretty sure, already read the GDUFA III commitment, and you already saw that guidance we published. We explained like what type of criteria you should meet. So there are certain criteria you need to meet to be eligible under prior assessment. I just summarized this like a very, it's like 5, I think, but I just summarized it here. Patent and exclusivity expiring within 12 months, no more than 3 approved applications, drug shortage, public health emergency, and sole source product. So those are very clearly outlined in the GDUFA III commitment letter and also the draft guidance. So before you submit anything for a prior assessment, before you submit that request, please read the guidance, please. Guidance has everything. So please read the guidance. There's a checklist for you to say, oh, did I sign the letter? Did we pay the user fee? And did we talk to the applicant? And do we know what the criteria? So there are so many things, and there's a checklist. It's in the appendix. Make sure you read that, get an understanding. And if there's anything confusing, missing, you're not sure, you know where to reach. DMF OGD mailbox. And so the prior assessment, there are like 2 categories, like sort of like 2 sections. So one is for original ANDAs or ANDA amendments. And then the other one is for prior approval supplements. So the prior approval supplement is sort of limited. It's limited to if you are adding a new API source to a prior approval supplement, which is for your PAs or your application is for a drug shortage or a public health emergency. So this is important because recently we had to deny a couple of these prior assessment requests because there was a PA, it was submission is for a PAS, but they were not for drug shortage or public health emergency. So because of that, we had to deny it. So make sure, read the guidance. That way you know exactly which category you pick to submit these prior assessments. And here's the link to the guidance. This is the final guidance. It talks about when you can submit it. So for example, prior assessments, you need to have a, it should be, there has to be a DMF. You cannot have drug substance information in the ANDA. They don't qualify. So there are a few things, it's all outlined in the guidance. So make sure, you follow that. Implementation process, just very quickly. So the request comes in and OPQAIII, FDA, so we triage it. And something unique about this process is we issue this 5-day IR. It's a very short turnaround, 5 IR. So it's unfortunately, we cannot send you this IR if you don't have a secure email. Getting a secure email from FDA is very, very easy. So make sure you get a secure email, because if you don't have a secure email, we cannot send you this 5-day IR because it's a short turnaround. We can't fax it or we can't mail it. So let's go through this. So 5-day IR, you need a secure email. We either grant or deny the request. If we grant it, we send the grant letter and we will let you know when it will be reviewed, and we will assign it to a team to conduct the review. And if there are any deficiencies, so most of the times, by the time we finish the review, there is no application in-house. Couple of maybe one time we saw there's an application. So if there's an application, we can issue the CR, but most of the times it's an IR. And if we deny it, we send you a deny letter and we tell you why we denied it. So that's important. We tell you why we denied it so that you can, and also in the deny letter, we tell you, this doesn't mean you denied forever. This means this is the reason why you denied, why we denied your request, so that, you can, if there's something, lack of communication with the applicant, maybe you can, talk to them again, you can submit it again. And we look at it, and then maybe next time you will get a grant. Again, OGD mailbox. So this communication is important. As soon as we see this communication, we look for the project. This is going to be a submission through Gateway. But when we see this email that you submitted a prior assessment, we will look out for that submission. As soon as we see this submission, we're going to start triaging. So we need the notification. Please make sure, send the notification. So what's the impact? Again, have an opportunity to review the DMF outside of an application. Remember that there's a 6 months. Before even ANDA gets into FDA, the DMF is here. So you have that extra 6 months to finish one cycle. So for original ANDA, by the time you come to that mid-cycle, we may have another cycle. So maybe within the first GDUFA cycle, we may have an adequate DMF. So this is why it's very important to, if you are eligible, use this and submit it. The goal is actually, like I said, get to the adequate status as quickly as possible and reduce the number of cycles. And like Dr. Kozak showed, maybe we can improve or increase that percentage of first cycle approvals. So here's the thing. At the beginning of GDUFA III, we actually estimated we would get about 80. Let's see where we are. We have not seen the numbers. So this is why I am here today, again, to actually present and remind you, this is a really good thing for the industry. Use it. If you have questions, talk to us, ask. Am I eligible? I don't know, most of the times it's in the guidance. It's very clear. So use that so you can see. We haven't received that. We haven't seen the numbers yet. So that's why I'm asking you. So make use of it. Key points. Triaged upon request. As soon as we see the email, we look for the submission. So we will triage it as soon as we receive it. We give the industry a chance to fix if something is missing. User fee is not there or there's a user fee issue. Simple things, we send an IR. Grant or deny letter, issue within 2 weeks. If you don't hear from us within 2 weeks after you submit it, ask us, what happened to my prior assessment? Send that email. And when granted, we will tell you when it's been done. Usually it is the date you say the ANDA will be submitted. So that's also in the guidance. This is, like I mentioned, for prior approval supplements to add a new source. This is something the industry actually should use for drug shortage and public health emergency. I just put it here for you, but I already talked about this. Planning ahead. Talk with your applicants. Communication is the key. Communication. Talk to the applicant, see whether you are eligible. So that's always really important. I talked about guidance a lot. Yes, follow the guidance. And if you have any questions, email the DMF OGD mailbox. We get tons of emails and we are here to help you get to your first approval, so application approval. So make sure you let us know. Summary, it's exactly the same things that I just summarized. Allow for the assessment outside of a cycle. This will improve the number of approvals. Communication between the holder and the applicant, critical, DMF holder and the applicant, and the communication between even industry and FDA is also critical. We did a really nice, I know I'm out of my time, 15 seconds. We did a really nice workshop back in 2022, right after the GDUFA III implementation. So many resources. We even did a tutorial on how you submit your cover letter. Cover letter, or you can even submit the 3938 form. So make sure, take use of that. And some resources. So I'm out of my time. And thank you so much for listening. And I'll be back later if you have any questions. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. David Green. Thank you.